Now, to some, they're a symbol of Big Brother. To others, they protect them from crime and disorder. But for Muslims in one area of Birmingham, CCTV cameras are evidence that they are being targeted. That's because the money for them has come from a counter-terrorism fund. But at a stormy meeting on Thursday night, police told residents that the cameras would not be dismantled. Our correspondent Robin Brandt reports on the row.
The latest public meeting, the latest chance to vent anger over the cameras. Take them down, they shouted.
You're turning the country into a police state. Yeah. You've got more cameras than communist China.
And this is what has caused the problems. 216 cameras are up in all, forming a ring around Birmingham's two big Muslim areas. It was sold as a tool for dealing with antisocial behaviour, car crime. Turned out they were paid for with anti-terror money.
If there's 70 hidden cameras now, what makes you say that they won't do it in again 6 months and further down the line they won't even put a camera right looking at your window?
Muslim police relations in Birmingham have come under immense pressure over this. So the police have promised no further counter-terror involvement with the cameras. But now the BBC's been told that if they are turned on, they could be used for just that.
If there was a terrorist incident, we'd use every bit of technology possible to solve that crime.
Or prevent it.
Or prevent it. What I'm saying to you at the moment is that the project, as it started, sat within the counter-terrorism world, and that is no longer.
A major terror plot was uncovered in Birmingham in 2007. But 3 years later, the police are facing an angry community, less likely to talk to them. Robin Brandt, BBC News, Spark Hill in Birmingham.
Well, with us now are Corinna Ferguson from the civil rights group Liberty and Robin Simcox from the think tank, the Centre for Social Cohesion, who's also co-authored a book called Islamist Extremists, the British Connections. Thank you for coming in. Robin Simcox, I mean, you are broadly in favour, I think, of these cameras, but it has been handled in a pretty ham-fisted way, isn't it?
I think so. It's exactly the word I'd use, I think, ham-fisted. But I think you've got to look at the larger issue. One, is there a problem with extremism and terrorism in the country? The police, the government, the security service will say so. Is there a problem with CCTV? Can it be used in the fight against counter-terrorism? Terrorism cases again and again have proved it can. And is there a problem with, in certain small pockets of Birmingham in the Muslim community? 12% of terrorist convictions between 1999 and 2009 were from people in the Birmingham area.
But you are targeting a whole community here. It's a blanket approach, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I can see why people would think it's controversial, but at the same time, the police's main role, of course, is their only role is to stop crime. And what would they have them do? I mean, should they put CCTV in areas where there isn't these levels of extremism and terrorism? I don't think they should. I think people would be disappointed if they did.
So, Corinna, the idea here to stop crime, and the police are doing roughly the right thing.
I think the real point is that you don't defeat terrorism by targeting an entire community for surveillance based on their race or religion. This is a discriminatory scheme, and it's very unlikely to be effective. Instead, I'm afraid what's likely to happen is that it will be counterproductive in terms of tackling extremism, because the resentment in the community in being treated as suspects, as they are being, it is very high and is understandable, I think. And there is a broader point as well about the massive increase in the use of CCTV cameras around the country. This isn't just an issue that affects Birmingham, and it isn't just an issue for the Muslim community. It affects all of us, and we really now need proper regulation to make sure that these sorts of misguided schemes don't happen.
You clearly have there's an ideological argument which you pick up on there, but let me just go back to your point that it's not likely to be effective. Why do you feel that?
Well, a vast number of the cameras that have been installed in these areas are ANPR cameras. They detect your number plate on your car, and that's completely dependent on the person driving a car which is registered in their own name. And of course, if the person that you're looking for uses another form of transport or uses somebody else's car, that's very easily evaded. The police have much more directed and specific powers to keep suspects under surveillance where there are good grounds for thinking that people are up to no good. And really that's the way of dealing with a genuine terrorist threat, rather than alienating an entire community.
Is there any way, Robin, that this can be adapted subtly, do you think, to meet the demands and the complaints of the community? Because, I mean, this ring is in place, isn't it? I mean, if you could fund it from a different source of money or something like that.
I think the funding was a big problem, and my guess is they may try and do something similar along those lines, because the ultimate problem is that the problem in this area hasn't gone away. I mean, we can talk around it, but if there are extreme elements, and we know from the stats that people from this area have gone to commit terrorist acts and been convicted of terrorism, what do? I think the police have to monitor, and of course it's not going to be popular, but police very rarely are popular.
And actually, when you said, Corinna, that it was very divisive, you could see from that report, actually, how socially cohesive this actually had become. The whole community had pulled together in their absolute fury.
Well, that's true, but unfortunately the relationship between the community and the police has really broken down, and I do think it would be a mistake for the police to try to salvage anything out of this scheme, because the original basis for it was so flawed.
So if they say, OK, we're not going to use this scheme at all, do you say then CCTV should not be used at all, or can you see a way with the element of regulation you're talking about that it can be...
Nobody's saying that CCTV can't be useful. Of course it can in some circumstances. And remember that there were quite a lot of CCTV cameras in this area already. And we're not suggesting there shouldn't be any at all. We're just suggesting it should be used appropriately and proportionately to the crime levels in a particular area, and there ought to be proper regulation of it to make sure that people's personal privacy isn't thrown away.
And Robin, on this ANPR, I mean, another point that could be made is that if that's just tracking number plates, you know, people can borrow cars, use other people's cars, bring other cars in, change number plates. What are you achieving with that?
Well, I think this goes to prove that the scheme is far from infallible. I think everyone would accept that. But I think you've just got to look at the wider point. We talk about disproportionality. Unfortunately, when you look at the stats, 12% from Birmingham, that is a high amount. So I think the police, maybe this isn't the ideal way to go around it, but to wish this away and say we shouldn't use CCTV in these areas as some people did.
Yeah, but 12%, but 82% of the population being targeted because of that.
Sure, well, but I don't think it's 82% of the population. I think also a lot of people seem to be under the impression that the state is going to take these and monitor everyone at all times, all day. I mean, we don't, of course, live in a police state, and I do think there's a bit of paranoia about this argument at times.
OK, Robin Simcox, Corinna Ferguson, thanks very much for your time.